Have you ever gazed at the sky, wondering if you are alone in the universe? You wouldn't be the only one. Millions of people stare into the sky, looking for flying saucers. And nobody notices the spaceships. Keep your eyes open. Who knows what we might see? And while we watch the sky together, I'd like to talk to you about Fermi's paradox. What is Fermi's paradox? Wikipedia describes it as the apparent contradiction between the lack of evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations and high probability estimates for the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations. The curious thing is, it's not really a paradox at all, as there is no logical contradiction between ET is not here and ET exists elsewhere, just a subjective observation. And Fermi's sole contribution to the paradox that bears his name was the question, where is everybody? So why is an alien interested in Fermi's paradox? Surely I should know whether I exist or not. Nevertheless, it raises some very interesting questions. Not so much about the existence of extraterrestrial life forms such as myself, but the existence of the human race. From an alien's perspective, Fermi's paradox is, how can I put this? Almost true. That is why there are so few advanced alien life forms. Millions of intelligent life forms, but not many advanced species capable of intergalactic travel. A tiny handful. That's why you don't see much evidence for our existence. From your perspective, Fermi's paradox and its possible solutions apply just as much to your species as they do to mine and the millions of other intelligent species out there in space. Your scientists have looked at Fermi's paradox from an alien perspective, so I should be talking about Fermi's paradox from a very human perspective. Enrico Fermi. He was an exceptional Italian physicist, born in 1901, the architect of the nuclear age and creator of the world's first nuclear reactor. In 1950, he was walking to lunch with colleagues, discussing UFO reports and laughing at a newspaper cartoon, blaming the disappearance of municipal trash cans on marauding aliens. During lunch, the conversation shifted until Fermi announced out of the blue, "Where is everybody?" His colleagues laughed out loud and understood at once that Fermi was referring to aliens. He promptly followed up his question with a series of calculations on the probability of life, the probability of Earth-like planets, and the probability of advanced technology, and came to the conclusion Earth should have been visited a long time ago, many times over. Of course, Fermi was a bit of a practical joker, so he may have been just teasing his colleagues. He certainly showed no further interest in the subject himself. But his question is still being asked today. Where on earth is everybody? Michael Hart had a rather pessimistic outlook, arguing that if smart aliens existed, they would colonize the Milky Way using nothing more than rocket technology. An argument picked up by Frank Tipler, who postulated that self-replicating robots could rapidly colonize the galaxy in his aptly titled paper, Extraterrestrial Intelligence Does Not Exist. Carl Sagan took a more optimistic point of view, arguing that the Hart-Tipler theory only proves that there are no ancient galactic civilizations with a consistent policy of conquest. His attitude is reflected by SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, not surprising as he was a founding member. Can you see anything yet? Can you hear anything? Neither can I. That's the problem. Your scientists call it the Great Silence. How come, when microbiological life is so prolific, there is nothing out there? Not a sight, not a sound, just the Great Silence. One explanation is the Gaian bottleneck. Proposed by Chopra and Lineweaver, the Gaian bottleneck suggests that microbiological organisms cannot evolve fast enough to stabilize their environment, and that extinction is the cosmic default for most life forms. But perhaps the best explanation for the deafening silence is Robin Hanson's essay, The Great Filter. Are we past it? Written in 1998, this essay really hits the nail on the head. The Great Filter theory says that at some point in life, from reproductive molecules to type 3 civilization, there's a wall. There's some stage in that long evolutionary process that is extremely unlikely, or even impossible, for life to get beyond. That stage is the Great Filter. It is a short essay, and Hanson does not dwell upon what the Great Filter could be. His genius was to realize that the Great Filter applies to humans just as much as it applies to imaginary aliens. His impassioned introduction says it all. The Great Filter must force us to revise a standard view in one or more areas of biology, astronomy, physics, or the social sciences. And some of these revisions strongly suggest that humanity be much more wary of possible disasters. His fear is that if his filter theory is correct and accurately explains the lack of evidence for extraterrestrial intelligent life, then humans will have to pass through that filter, just as my ancestors did 500,000 years ago, except that we call it the technology barrier. If you're interested, there's a simple formula for working out if your species can survive the Great Filter. ED plus SD is greater than TD equals path. That is to say, emotional development plus social development is greater than technological development equals path. Then we have ED plus SD is less than TD equals fail. That's to say, emotional development plus social development is less than technological development equals fail. Let's have a look at the formula. It's not rocket science, just common sense. The first line states that if any species' emotional and social development outstrips their technological development, you will survive the Great Filter. In the next line, technological development outstrips social and emotional development. No prizes for guessing what happens in this scenario. Stone Age emotions and Bronze Age social institutions like monarchy, democracy, money and religion can no longer cope with the speed of technological change. Financial systems collapse, governments stop working. Ring any bells yet? This is the technology barrier that all sentient species have to face, not just humans. Once a society reaches the post-industrial era, things start to speed up at a frightening rate, faster than you can imagine. And before you know it, you're living in a science fiction world of your own invention. Everything you can dream of becomes possible. Longer life, free energy, artificial intelligence, you name it, anything you can imagine. How can that not be a good thing? How come so few species make it through the Great Filter with all that wonderful technology at their fingertips? If it was that easy, the sky would be full of spaceships, so many it would be impossible not to see some trace of extraterrestrial intelligence. Instead, there is nothing but the great silence and emptiness of space. But not completely empty. There's a handful of species who have made the journey from microbiological life to type 3 civilization. Each one has their own story to tell, but they all have one thing in common: empathy. Nobody makes it through the technology barrier without empathy. That is why emotional and social development is such an important aspect of the equation. It seems fairly obvious that high-tech societies will need increasingly complex social institutions and laws to flourish. But in reality, the opposite is true. Advanced Type 3 civilizations require almost no government and very few laws. My species has only one law. It is 2 words long, but strictly enforced. Be yourself. How can that possibly work? You may well ask. Surprisingly well. The answer is not a political revolution, but an emotional one. All Type 3 civilizations, by accident or design, opted for emotional development rather than relying on antiquated social systems. An emotionally literate society is incredibly resilient to the negative effects of revolutionary technological change. Safe, happy children brought up in an emotionally literate society don't need endless laws and regulation to make them good citizens. Empathy is the key. Well, thank you very much indeed. That's just what I need. Delicious. Thanks. Empathy. Empathic beings not only make a rather lovely cup of tea, they are less likely to blow themselves up in a nuclear holocaust. They can cooperate without a rigid social hierarchy. And when the money stops working, which believe me it does in the post-industrial era, which for you guys is round about now, then it's not a problem. Things get done. People cooperate. Empathy for other life forms makes environmental destruction less likely. People need an environment. It's important to look after it. And how does empathy affect your relationship with your enemies? Does it make you more vulnerable? No, it doesn't. With empathy, you can negotiate with your enemies. It's not even necessary always to defeat them. And when it is necessary, empathy helps you to outmaneuver your opponent and ensure your own survival. Empathy is a major evolutionary advantage. Without empathy, no society can survive the multiple pitfalls of rapid technological growth. Not on Earth or any other planet. Without sufficient empathy, it is impossible to even operate the advanced level 3 nanotechnology necessary for intergalactic travel, which, if you think about it, is quite lucky. Otherwise, the universe would be full of evil, steampunk, galactic empires fighting to the death, destroying everything in their path. Luckily for all of us, empathy is a two-edged sword. It makes you all powerful, but at the same time, very vulnerable. Highly empathic beings have the awesome power of level 3 technology, but are totally vulnerable to other people's feelings. So what are Earth's chances of survival? Very good, actually. This is one of the most diverse, life-rich planets in the galaxy, and will quickly recover if you guys mess up. You're not the only sentient species. Your cousins, your clever cousins, the dolphins, they made a good call, going back to the water. By the time they come back to land and begin their technological journey, their emotions and social systems will be sophisticated enough to sail through the technology barrier. As for humanity, that is your choice. It's up to you. Your big brains and these clever hands of yours, they got you into trouble in the first place. Maybe those big brains and those clever hands can get you back out of trouble. I certainly hope so. This is the coolest planet this side of the Milky Way. Every music fan in the galaxy is on their way, and we are here to rock. Until next time, I'll be seeing you.